Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're plunging headfirst into a truly mythic tale. We're going to be exploring a grim, dark fable known as the Mechanical Sovereign and the Sixth Parable. It's essentially this profound clash between absolute, unyielding control on one hand and organic, unpredictable freedom on the other. At the center of all this is the tragic destiny of a character named Sir Brain and his companion, Alara. We'll be using a Fichtean dialectic, setting up a thesis, an antithesis, and finding a final synthesis to really unpack the deep philosophical questions woven into the story. It's an absolutely fascinating look at what happens when the desire to control the world completely overrides the ability to just live in it. Okay, so let's dive right in by feeling the immediate, unsettling contrast presented at the very beginning of our text. Imagine the shock to the system. Our travelers, Sir Brain and Alara, literally step out of their logic-driven, completely deterministic world and right into the unpredictable wild. They go from a place where every single thing is calculated to a forest where they are instantly hit with a sudden, dissonant vibration of the mechanical heartbeat. It's a huge, immediate signal to us that the structured machinery of their past is violently colliding with something ancient and completely untamed. Section 1. Descent into Pure Land. The machine god arrives. Right, so here is where our Fichtean thesis begins. We're looking at the initial aggressive action of the narrative. There is the stark, immediate tension. On one side, we have the pure land of the forest. The air there is thick with the scent of wet earth and unoxidized potential. It's raw, it's breathing, it's the organic wild, right? And in total contrast, they've just left behind Geneva, which is entirely characterized by dampening fields of logic and strict deterministic rule. You can practically feel the friction between these two environments. Sir Brain isn't just taking a casual walk in the woods here. He's like an entirely foreign operating system aggressively trying to install itself on a completely incompatible hard drive. To really understand Sir Brain, we have to understand his baseline operating state, which he calls absolute ice. This is his complete, total rejection of human identity. He sheds his history, his titles, and what the text actually calls the eternal feminine of nature. Because he is so locked into this pure, unyielding mechanical logic, Sir Brain views anything outside of his direct command not as a natural variation, but literally as a mechanical error. Imagine walking through life where every unpredictable gust of wind is perceived as a glitch that you must personally fix. Section 2. The Machine's Sublime Prison. A miracle of malice. Now, Sir Brain's absolute terror of the wild doesn't make him run away. Actually, it manifests as a violent need to completely rewrite it. Look at how this transformation plays out. First, Brain's seed of unbound logic takes root right in the forest floor. Second, we see these groaning seams of violet brass actively replacing the yielding wood of the old world. And finally, every single fiber of the forest is forced into a frantic machine watchmaker tempo. The source refers to this mechanical infection not as progress, but as a miracle of malice. He isn't nurturing the world at all. He's actively overwriting the living environment into a transitory theater for his own divinity. He's building a sublime prison. Section 3. The Artisan's Soft Error. The Power of Yielding. And this brings us to our antithesis. If Sir Brain represents absolute rigid command, Alara represents a completely different philosophy of creation. Think of it as a dramatic dialogue between the two. Sir Brain is the mechanical god, a walking furnace whose internal dark fire disrupts time to force his will upon the world. But Alara, she is the sovereign artisan, walking as an honest guest. Instead of overwriting the environment, she reads the transition through the shifting textures of the moss. She yields, she observes, and she adapts. But it's absolutely crucial to understand that Alara isn't just passive, not at all. She carries a secret tooth of ambition, a violet residue in her palm, and she is deeply affected by her companion, bearing a permanent warm scar left by Brain's absolute ice. She definitely hasn't escaped his rigid logic untouched. However, instead of mirroring his dominance, she deliberately integrates a soft error into her own will. She actively chooses an escapement that yields rather than commands. Basically, she bends so she won't break. Section 4. Shadow of the Clockwork. The Silent Witness. Watching this incredibly tense, rhythmic dance over the abyss is a third entity, the Shadow Spirit. This is a flickering fragment of the mirror of truth existing entirely outside their machinery. And this spirit's perspective, it changes everything. It doesn't look down and see a terrifying mechanical god. No, it sees a cloud charged with lightning, throwing a fascinating tantrum. The shadow spirit interprets Brain's mechanical heart not as a symbol of strength, but as proof that he is deeply, profoundly terrified of true silence and terrified of being wound by any hand but his own. To study this tantrum, the shadow uses a clockwork snow owl. It's this fascinating device made of recursive memory coils. The owl acts as a ledger, archiving the artificial heat of the glen. It's literally recording the collaborative dialogue happening right in front of it, the intricate weaving of Alara's organic refusal to dominate alongside Brain's unyielding sovereign will. The spirit is essentially appraising a living, unfinished book of history, just waiting to see how this grand experiment in absolute control will actually play out. Section 5. An Inverted Tragic Journey, the Anti-Myth. Stepping back for a second, we can actually map Sir Brain's terrifying quest directly against a traditional hero's myth. And when we do, it reveals a really dark inversion. In a normal myth, the call to adventure is about stepping out to save the world, right? Well, for Sir Brain, it's about constructing a sublime prison to make time itself kneel. The belly of the whale is usually a place of deep reflection. For Brain, it's the sixth solitude, a global cage where he isolates himself. And instead of a journey toward enlightenment, his path is a descent into a jagged overfullness that threatens to shatter the very mirror of truth he claims to master. Just notice the completely twisted nature of the boon here. In a traditional salvation quest, the hero brings back healing, wisdom, and organic freedom. Sir Brain's ultimate gift to history? A mechanical plague. His twisted boon to the world is an environment where nothing is ever permitted to drift and absolutely nothing is allowed to dream. It is a victory of pure, sterile function over life itself. Section 6. The 12 o'clock crack. The final fracture. So, this brings us to our Fichtean synthesis, the totally inevitable collapse of a system built purely on fear and rigidity. Throughout the journey, both travelers have dreaded something called the sixth parable. This is the moment a newly forged mechanical garden decides to simply stop ticking. It's the terrifying realization that absolute mechanical logic might not be self-sustaining. Eventually, the machine might just choose to embrace the dignity of silence, completely undermining the mechanical god's desperate fear of stopping. And that brings us to the climax, the 12 o'clock crack. Let me tell you, it is not a triumphant roar of victory. It is the sound of a lonely escapement finally admitting its limitations. Sir Brain's total sovereignty is exposed as a massive logical fallacy born of absolute terror. When the clock finally tolls, it doesn't signal eternal rule. It signals a fatal fracture. The rigid soul shatters entirely because it was simply too stiff to truly live. You just cannot completely overpower nature without eventually breaking yourself against it. Meanwhile, what happens to Alara? Well, the text tells us that the door that leads truly outward belongs to the sovereign artisan. It is precisely Alara's soft error, her capacity to yield, adapt, and read the moss alongside the wild, that allows her to survive all this. She finds the true exit moving forward, while leaving the absolute ruler, Sir Brain, completely trapped in the broken ruins of his own clockwork perfection. Her flexibility was her ultimate strength. As we close this explainer, this grim-dark fable leaves us with a really powerful reflection. We have to look at this dynamic and ask ourselves, can absolute mechanical logic ever truly coexist with organic freedom? Or, perhaps more pointedly, is the drive for total, optimized control just a symptom of being terrified of the wild? Are we building our own sublime prisons simply because we are afraid of the unpredictable nature of our own wildness? It's a profound thought to take with you. Keep questioning, keep yielding to the unknown, and thank you so much for exploring with me today.